12 years behind me in age. We were quite grown up. They were young kids. They had visited us, and we had this Mickey Mouse doll. I always wanted to play with it and enjoy it, but my mother said no, it'll break, and we should keep it aside, and we should treasure it. Dad got it from US, so okay, we used to be very obedient and listen. And this kid, Prashant, his name is. He came and he took that. He wanted to play with that toy. He was crying and being, little. Uh, Somewhat he was going through some stage in his temperament, and he had this crying spell, and my mother, to calm him, took out the Mickey Mouse toy and gave it to him. That boy immediately took a pen and he scribbled all over it, the sketch pen thing, which you can't erase, you can't, it won't go away. And that day I was totally shattered and broken. But when we took it out to play, it was not for us, it was for someone else. And that person totally took away the joy. And instead of joy, we endured pain. Although it was like long time back, but he must have been like a 2 or 3 year old kid. I must have been like maybe 10 or 12-year-old. So it totally shattered me. Now, when you think about it, we should enjoy whatever we have. The showcase mein, almara mein, aisa rakhna nahi chahiye. And nowadays also, I've seen that the houses we build, the interior, they have removed it. The houses we build, the interior, they have removed it. You don't have, only the people with that old mentality, we keep that loft spaces. We should just enjoy it and be in that present. That is how I process that idea of presence. So any beautiful moment or any toy or anything, even dishes, cooking, good food, we preserve it, keep it, those nice recipes only for a special moment. Whereas every moment, every day is special. Every day is a celebration. Every day is a good moment. And we should go with that. And even if we are wearing a beautiful frock or using a crockery or broke a toy, it's okay. When we break it, it gets worn out, we can buy another one, we can make another one. It's fine. So treasuring the present moment, in the present, enjoying it, feeling it, sensing it is extremely important. Instead of storing it away for a later period when there would be joy. So it's not like joy is not when we meet friends or on a festival day. Every day is a festival. Every person you meet in your life is a friend. And that is how, the good neurons, I feel connects in the mind. And we become, we elevate ourselves. We go into the next level of enjoying life, and the positivity comes into us. So this I was wanting to share for a very long time. So thank you for listening to it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was a that was a very relatable example. I think we all encounter something or the other like this in a childhood. Either it's us or either it's the other child. So I remember
But
like and it
many
happens.
people don't do it now. The present generation, no, they are not like that. They just enjoy it. And nowadays people say, no, you get a toy or something, children just open it, break it, and throw it in the dustbin. It's fine. It's okay. That's the whole purpose of it. If it doesn't get broken today, it'll get broken tomorrow. It's fine. If a kid wants to play and break something, it's not breaking. It's they enjoyed it. That's how we should look at it. And I'm seeing the present generation, no, the young people nowadays, they do that, and I find it very fascinating, and I love it. I just love it the way they are doing it. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
thank you.
Actually, I'll tell you, like similarly, like very similar. Like I think that maturity has come now, and maybe also because now people are not so like attached to it as such because they have this tendency that yeah, we can buy it again, we can give a new one, and maybe people are also financially. Sometimes it's not we don't look at toys as that like the way you said, na. Maybe when things come from outside and they are looked upon as like very rare, very this thing, then maybe I think it happens with that this thing. Otherwise I think we are okay because I remember Like just recently, and there is a very beautiful acceptance also from the family for it. But one of my cousins, one of my husband's cousin actually, and his daughter, she's been looked after by her grandparents. And because the mother and father, they both are working, like mother is in Qatar, and she hardly comes, like she cannot, like she's in Qatar Airlines, so she cannot come often. So she comes sometimes to visit, and the father is also working. They are both in aviation. So what happens, like the child, she's very sweet, and she's very energetic and heavy as such. So she keeps breaking everything, like whatever you give her, and however expensive. Obviously, kids don't understand, na, like it is expensive or not, whatever it is. But her tendency is to throw and see or whatever. She will break it in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And the family, even the grandparents and all, they just very mockingly say it, they say it very no, not like they obviously they say ki are yaar, nothing stays now, like and I remember one day I was just sharing that there was this wonderful ball that her mother has received because there was some festival, something happened na, like in the Qatar recently, like some tournament, something was there. So because of that, she has received that wonderful ball. It is very heavy, it is very good quality. So I was like, wow, this is beautiful na, she should get toys like this so they will not break, because whatever we give her, she will break it in 5 minutes. So they were like, no, but with this she breaks the TV. So it's dangerous, she's even dangerous. So we just keep it aside. So but they're very casual about it, they are not like anxious, or they don't make her feel embarrassed about it. And it's a very wonderful approach as such. And even I remember recently it was a birthday in July, and we had just given a gift. And yeah, she just managed to break it. Like it was something we thoughtfully chose. It was some different, like a rubber toy or something like that. It was, we thoughtfully chose so that it will not hurt, it will not break, it will be mostly long lasting. But she still managed to break it within like 5 minutes of opening it. And we were like, okay, we'll see if we can get it exchanged. And we then got it exchanged and got a new one. But it's fun, like it happens. So yeah, I remembered of that. And I remember even in my childhood also, I remember they were, I was personally, I think my daughter is also fortunately that way. I was not so much of a person who broke things and things like that. I used to play very carefully. Even she did not, so she gets very irritated with her at times when she breaks something. Sometimes then we'll have to make her understand it's okay and all of that. So yeah, that was a very nostalgic example you shared. And yes, about keeping things, I remember my parents, they have so many gifts, they have just kept as it is, like because they want them to be new forever, but they don't use it. And actually they don't even need it, maybe they are like they're very content with whatever they have, so they don't feel like having it. But yeah, then that takes out the joy of experiencing that thing in particular. Like we don't live in the present, yeah, we just want to keep everything ready for future. So yeah, I personally also loved this part of this chapter. Like in fact, I loved almost every part of it. But that being and doing, I do talk about it many a times, and I do believe in it about this alignment and all. So this was the very first time I read about uh, purpose in such a way. Like normally, I have heard people talking about and listening. Like we have listened to purpose. You should find your purpose, ikigai, and all of that in different ways. But I think this is the first time when the author shares there is an inner purpose and outer purpose. And he talks about being and doing together. Like, so doing, outer purpose is doing, and inner purpose is being. And that alignment is also very important in all of that. So that was very beautiful for me personally. Many other things also, like even somewhere he mentioned, right? Um about GJ, so many things. I'm just scrolling through the pages. So in case if we want to highlight something, the next chapter is very small actually. Huh? So we can take a little more time if you want for discussion, or we can come back to it later, like after reading this 10th chapter also. That is also okay. However, everyone wants it. So maybe by that time we'll have more people. So if we want, we can do it that way. So I would highly
Also,
insist all. we all go and reread this chapter at least once on our own, at least this one chapter, and one more like whatever you feel you need to understand better. The few chapters I feel could be wonderfully understood if we reread it on our own silently, like in our own, with our own pace and time, paying more attention. Because sometimes what happens in group reading, at least for me it happens in group reading, when someone else is reading, or even if we are reading, it flows a little fast. Because in self reading, what we do, we can go back, we can ponder upon particular lines and paragraph again and again if you want to, right? So that helps a little better, I feel, sometimes, at least for deeper books like this. Otherwise, it helps anyways. So as beautiful as the discussions are, because they help us understand each other's perspective, help us open our minds to different perspectives. I feel it's also important that sometimes we introspect more on things, uh, on our own. That's also very important, especially for some books like this. Yeah, Viren, you were saying something, right? I think.
I was just
I
saying,
was,
let's start reading so that
Okay, okay.
we
Yeah.
can keep going. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. Like, yeah, Saurabh, you want to share something, you do, and then we'll go to reading, and maybe after that we can come back to the discussion again of both this chapter together if we have time. Yes, Saurabh, you share.
yeah, nothing actually. The child example that you were guys were discussing that reminded me of a recent article I was reading in Mint about, most of us are Indians are like middle class in our brains, even though we may have grown economically. So yeah, that reminded me of that, being middle class in terms of having that nostalgia for all these kind of things that we had in our childhoods, and that we kind of relate with our kids today and things like that. Just wanted to say that. Nothing else. Thank you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Actually, there were some parts, like so many parts in this book where I actually remembered you yesterday. And I wanted to tell you that do read this chapter, Saurabh. Like, I know you have read this book before, maybe, but maybe reading it again will help if you
Sure, I'll,
haven't.
I'll
Like,
go through the recording for yesterday for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Even in the recording, you won't find much because we don't do much of a discussion yesterday. And if you like reading, like listening to people from different different accent and voices, and you're comfortable with that, yeah, you can listen to the recording also, or an audio book or something. But I would insist, uh, go through this chapter particularly. Like, it's very
Which is
beautiful.
this chapter again, please?
It's your inner purpose, chapter 9.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah. It's very nice. So since you have
Perfect.
read the book already, I would say just go through this one first, and then maybe if you want to reread it, you can. Like, it's your choice. Yeah. Who else? Yeah,
Perfect.
Sunita.
Perfect.
How are you, Sunita? Yeah, yeah. You want to say something?
No, I missed
No,
yesterday's session and I didn't even have the time to go through the recording. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Your voice is not very clear, at least to me. I don't know about others. Yeah. Saurabh, you're saying something, right?
no, I was just saying that whatever I was worried about is sorted in my life. So just wanted to say that.
Oh wow, that's awesome. You let me know. Like, I'll just connect with you. Let
Yeah.
me know how things are evolving. I'm so happy for you. So yeah, yeah, Sunita, you want to say something? Would you like to share any insights from the chapter that we read yesterday? Anything that struck you? Because we did not discuss anything yesterday, na? So just I'm just asking in case you want to. We have time.
No, I mentioned that I was not part of the meeting yesterday and I didn't even get the time to actually yesterday. I was very
Oh,
busy for
acha,
me.
acha. Okay, okay, I
So
forgot. I did not notice that you were not there. I thought you were there. Okay, okay, no problem. Yeah. So what do we do, friends? Like, shall we just proceed with the reading, the reading for now, and then come back to it later if we have time, or just come back like on the discussion together of 9 and 10? I think we'll finish the 10th chapter. It seems to be a little smaller compared to the others.
Yeah, let's start.
Okay, yeah, we'll just come back to this. I was just saying this, Sunita, that just reread this chapter or just go through it again, because it's a very beautiful and deep chapter about inner purpose. And the author also very beautifully explains it a little differently than what we normally have heard. I love the one thing that I love about this author and his writing is Eckhart's his perspectives are so deep, right? Like they're not very general. Like normally what we hear from everyone's they are very deep. They take us more deeper into the understanding of all the concepts, may it be ego, may it be the pain, or whatever it is. Even purpose for now, he explains it in such a different, and I feel he covers it all. He covers both the perspectives, like he covers all possibilities or all confusions that you might have in our mind, and he simplifies the concepts further. So he has done such a deep inner work to understand at this level. So I like that profundity of his writing. So just love it. And that's why obviously he's so famous also. He's a world figure now. So yeah, let's start. Viren, I think you have written your name. So would you like to? Saurabh, you want to say something before we start?
No, no, I was just saying I will also like to read.
Okay, okay,
Maybe
yeah.
next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put your name and then you guys follow after one after the other. Yeah. Go on, go on. Yeah, Viren, you can start.
Yeah. So chapter 10. A new earth. Is my voice clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Astronomers have discovered evidence to suggest that the universe came into existence 15 billion years ago in a gigantic explosion and has been expanding ever since. Not only has it been expanding, but it is also growing in complexity and becoming more and more differentiated. Some scientists also postulate that this movement from unity to multiplicity will eventually become reversed. The universe will then stop expanding and begin to contract again, and finally return to the unmanifested, the inconceivable, nothingness out of which it came, and perhaps repeat the cycle of birth, expansion, contraction, death again and again. For what purpose? Why does the universe go to all the bother of existing? Asked physicist Stephen Hawking, realizing at the same time that no mathematical model could ever supply the answer. Can you scroll? If you look within rather than only without, however, you discover that you have an inner and outer purpose. And since you are a microcosmic reflection of the macrocosm, it follows that the universe too has an inner and outer purpose inseparable from yours. The outer purpose of the universe is to create form and experience the interaction of forms, the play, the dream, the drama, or whatever you choose to call it. Its inner purpose is to awaken to its formless essence. Then comes the reconciliation of outer and inner purpose to bring that essence, consciousness into the world of form and thereby transform the world. The ultimate purpose of that transformation goes far beyond anything the human mind can imagine and comprehend. And yet, on this planet at this time, the transformation is the task allotted us. This is the reconciliation of outer and inner purpose, the reconciliation of the world and God. Before we look at what relevance the expansion and contraction of universe has to your own life, we need to bear in mind here that nothing we say about the nature of the universe should be taken as an absolute truth. Neither concept nor mathematical formula can explain the infinite. No thought can encapsulate the vastness of totality. Reality is a unified whole, but thought cuts it up to the fragments. This gives rise to fundamental misperceptions. For example, that there are separate things and events, or that this is the cause of that. Every thought implies a perspective, and every perspective, by its very nature, implies limitation, which ultimately means that it is not true, at least not absolutely. Only the whole is true, but the whole cannot be spoken or thought. Sin from beyond the limitation of thinking and before incomprehensible to the human mind. Everything is happening now. All that ever has been or will be is now, outside of time, which is a mental construct. As an illustration of relative and absolute truth, consider the sunrise and sunset. When we say the sun rises in the morning and sets in the evening, that is true, but only relatively. In absolute terms, it is false. Only from the limited perspective of an observer on or near the planet surface does the sun rise and set. If you were far out in space, you would see that sun neither rises nor sets, but that it shines continuously. And yet, even after realizing that, we can continue to speak of the sunrise or sunset, still see its beauty painted, write poems about it, even though we now know that it is a relative rather than absolute truth. So let us continue to speak for a moment of another relative truth, the coming into form of the universe and its return to the formless, which implies the limited perspective of time, and see what relevance this has to your own life. The notion of my own life is, of course, another limited perspective created by thought, another relative truth. There is ultimately no such thing as your life, since you and life are not two, but one. A brief history of your life. The coming into manifestation of the world as well as its return to the unmanifested, its expansion and contraction, are two universal movements that we could call the outing and the return home. Those two movements are reflected through the universe in many ways, such as in the instant expansion and contraction of your heart, as well as in the inhalation and exhalation of your breath. They are also reflected in the cycle of sleep and wakefulness. Each night, without knowing it, you return to the unmanifested source of all life when you enter the stage of deep, dreamless sleep, and then emerge again in the morning, replenished. Those two movements, the outgoing and the return, are also reflected in each person's life cycle. Out of nowhere, so to speak, you suddenly appear in this world. Birth is followed by expansion. There is not only physical growth, but also growth of knowledge, activities, possessions, experiences. Your sphere of influence expands and life becomes increasingly complex. This is a time when you are mainly concerned with findings or pursuing your outer purpose. Usually, there is also a corresponding growth of the ego, which is identification with all the above things. And so your form identity becomes more and more defined. This is also the time when outer purpose growth tends to become usurped by the ego, which unlike nature does not know when to stop in its pursuit of expansion and has a voracious appetite for more. And then just when you thought you made it or that you belong here, the return movement begins. Perhaps people close to you begin to die. People who were a part of your world, then your physical form becomes. Your sphere of influence shrinks. Instead of becoming more, you now become less. And the ego reacts to this with increasing anxiety or depression. Your world is beginning to contract. And you may find you are not in control anymore. Instead of acting upon life, life now acts upon you by slowly by slowly reducing your world. The consciousness that identified with form is now experiencing the sunset, the dissolution of form, and then one day you too disappear. Your armchair is still there, but instead of you sitting in it, there is just an empty space. You went back to where you came from just a few years ago. Each person's life, each life form, in fact, represents a world, a unique way in which the universe experiences itself. And when your form dissolves, a world comes to an end, one of countless worlds. Awakening and the return movement. The return movement in a person's life, the beginning and dissolution of form. Whether through old age, illness, disability, loss, or some kind of personal tragedy, there is great potential for spiritual awakening. This disidentification of consciousness from form. Since there is a very little spiritual truth in our contemporary culture, not many people recognize this as an opportunity. And so when it happens to them or to someone close to them, they think there is something dreadfully wrong, something that should not be happening. There is in our civilization a great deal of ignorance about the human condition. And the more spiritually ignorant you are, the more you suffer. For many people, particularly in the West, death is no more than an abstract concept. And so they have no idea what happens to the human form when it approaches dissolution. Most dis- decrep, most decrepit and old people are the shut away in nursing homes, dead bodies, which in some older culture are on open display for all to see, are hidden away. Try to see a dead body, and you will find that it is virtually illegal, except if the deceased is a close family member. In funeral homes, they even apply makeup to the face. You are only allowed to see a sanitized version of death. Since death is only an abstract concept to them, most people are totally unprepared for the dissolution of form that awaits them. When it approaches, there is a shock, incomprehension, despair, and great fear. Nothing makes sense anymore because all the meaning and purpose that life had for them was associated with accumulating, succeeding, building, protecting, and sense gratification. It was associated with the outward movement and identification with form, that is to say, ego. Most people cannot conceive of any meaning than when their life, their world is being demolished. And yet potentially there is even deeper meaning here than in outer world, outer movement, outward movement. It is precisely through the onset of old age, through loss or personal tragedy, that the spiritual dimension would traditionally come into people's lives. That is to say, their inner purpose would emerge only as their outer purpose collapsed and the cell of ego would begin to crack open. Such events represent the beginning of the return movement toward the dissolution of form. In most ancient cultures, there must have been an intuitive understanding of this purpose, this process, which is why old people were respected and reversed. They were the repository of wisdom and provided the dimension of depth, without which no civilization can survive for long. In our civilization, which is totally identified with the outer and ignorant of the inner dimension of spirit, the word old has mainly negative connotation. It equals useless, and so we regard it as almost an insult to refer to someone as old. To avoid the word, we use euphemism, euphemisms such as elderly and senior. The First Nations grandmother is a figure of great dignity. Today's granny is the best cute. Why is old considered useless? Because in old age, the emphasis shifts from doing to being, and our civilization, which is lost in doing, knows nothing of being. It asks being, what do you do with it? In some people, the outward movement of growth and expansion gets severely disrupted by a seemingly premature onset of the return movement. The dissolving of form, in some cases, it is a temporary disruption, in other, a permanent one. We believe that a young child should not have to face death, but the fact is that some children do have to face death of one or both parents through illness or accident, or even the possibility of their own death. Some children are born with disabilities that severely restrict the natural expansion of their lives, or some severe limitation comes into a person's life at a relatively young age. The disruption of the outward movement at a time when it is not meant to be happening can also potentially bring forth an early spiritual awakening on a person. Ultimately, nothing happens that is not meant to happen. which is to say, nothing happens that is not part of the greater whole and its purpose. Thus, destruction of disruption of outer purpose can lead to finding your inner purpose and subsequently the arising of a deeper outer purpose that is aligned with the inner. Children who have suffered greatly often grow into young adults who are mature beyond their years. What is lost on the level of form is gained on the level of essence. In the traditional figure of the blind seer or the wounded healer of ancient cultures and legend, some great loss or disability on the level of form has become an opening into spirit. Then you have had a direct experience of the unstable nature of all forms. You will likely never overvalue form again and thus lose yourself by blindly pursuing it or attacking yourself to it. The opportunity that the dissolution of form and in particular old age represent is only just beginning to be recognized in our contemporary culture. In the majority of people, the opportunity is still tragically missed because the ego identifies with the return movement just as it identified with the outward movement. This results in a hardening of the egoic self, a contraction rather than an opening. The diminished ego then spends the rest of its days whining or complaining, trapped in fear or anger, self pity, guilt, blame, or other negative mental emotional state or avoidance strategies, such as attachment to memories and thinking and talking about the past. When the ego is no longer identified with the return moment in a person's life, old age or approaching death becomes what it is meant to be, an opening into the realm of spirit. I have met old people who were living embodiments of this process. They had become radiant. Their weakening forms had become transparent to the light of consciousness. On the new earth, old age will be universally recognized and highly valued as a time for the flowering of consciousness. For those who are still lost in the outer circumstances of their lives, it will be a time for a late homecoming when they awaken to their inner purpose. For many others, it will represent an intensification and culmination of the awakening process. Yeah. Anyone?
Yes,
Saurabh?
I may. Yeah, I may.
Saurabh
Thank
has also written his name, so like yeah, Saurabh.
Okay.
Suman, you take after Saurabh.
Yeah,
If
sure, sure.
Saurabh, you go on.
Yeah, thank you. So I have to start from the awakening. Sorry, I missed the last line.
Yeah, the first line on the screen, the first part, awakening and the outgoing moment. And you also leave some
Awakening.
space for someone to read after.
Sure. How long is the chapter? Or maybe I'll read for 5 minutes and then I'll have.
I'll just see. Let me check. Yeah, just give me. Yeah, we still have some parts to cover. Yeah, we have. Yeah. It is there. You can stop wherever you want, and I think she will
Okay.
still get the opportunity to read.
Okay.
Just a minute. I'll bring it back to. Uh, yeah, go on.
Awakening and the outgoing movement. The natural expansion of one's life that comes with the outward movement has traditionally been usurped by the ego and used for its own expansion. Look what I can do. I bet you can't do that, says the small child to another as he discovers the increasing strength and abilities of his body. That is one of the ego's first attempts to enhance itself through identification with the outward movement and the concept of more than you and to strengthen itself by diminishing others. It is the choice, of course, only the beginning of the ego. It is, of course, only the beginning of the ego's many misperceptions. However, as your awareness increases and the ego is no longer running your life, you don't have to wait for your world to shrink or collapse through old age or personal tragedy in order for you to awaken to your inner purpose. As the new consciousness is beginning to emerge on the planet, An increasing number of people no longer need to be shaken to have an awakening. They embrace the awakening process voluntarily, even while still engaged in the outward cycle of growth and expansion. When that cycle is no longer served by the ego, the spiritual dimension will come into the world through the outward movement, thought, speech, action, creation, as powerfully as though the return movement, stillness, being, and dissolution of form. Until now, human intelligence, which is no more a minute aspect of universal intelligence, has been distorted and misused by the ego. I call that intelligence in the service of madness. Splitting the atom requires great intelligence. Using that intelligence for building and stockpiling atom bombs is insane, or at best, extremely unintelligent. Stupidity is relatively harmless, but intelligent stupidity is highly dangerous. This intelligent stupidity, for which one could find countless obvious examples, is threatening our survival as a species. Without, without the impairment of egoic dysfunction, our intelligence comes into full alignment with the outgoing cycle of universal intelligence and its impulse to create. We become conscious participants in the creation of form. It is not we who create but the universal intelligence that creates through us. We don't identify with what we create and so don't lose ourselves in what we do. We are learning that the act of creation may involve energy of the highest intensity, but that is not hard work or stressful. We need to understand the difference between stress and intensity, as we shall see. Struggle or stress is a sign that the ego has returned as a negative reaction when we encounter obstacles. The force behind the ego's wanting creates enemies, that is to say, reaction, in the form of the opposing force equal in intensity. The stronger the ego, the stronger the sense of separateness between people. The only actions that do not cause opposing reactions are those that are aimed at good of all. They're inclusive, not exclusive. They join, they don't separate. They are not for my country, but for all the humanity. Not for my religion, but for the emergence of consciousness in all beings. Not for my species, but for all sentient beings and all of the nature. We are also learning that action, although necessary, is also only a secondary factor in manifesting our external reality. The primary factor is creation is consciousness. No matter how active we are, how much effort we make, our state of consciousness creates our world. Create modified versions of same world again and again. A world that is an external reflection of the ego. Consciousness. Consciousness is already conscious. It is the unmanifested, the external universe. However, is only gradually becoming conscious. Consciousness itself is timeless and therefore does not evolve. It was never born and does not die. When consciousness becomes the manifested universe, it appears to be and to undergo an evolutionary process. No human mind is capable of comprehending fully the reason for the process, but we can glimpse it within ourselves and become a conscious participant in it. Consciousness is intelligence, the organizing principle behind the arising of form. Consciousness has been preparing for millions of years so that it can express itself through them in the manifested. Although the unmanifested realm of the pure consciousness could be considered another dimension, it is not separate from the dimension of form. Form and formlessness interpenetrate the unmanifested flows into the dimension as awareness, inner space, presence. How does it do that? Though the human form that becomes conscious and thus fulfills its destiny, the human form was created for its higher purpose, and millions of other forms prepared the ground for it. Consciousness incarnates into the manifested dimension. This is to say, it becomes form. When it does so, it enters a dreamlike state. Intelligence dreams, but consciousness becomes unconscious of itself. It loses itself in the form, becomes identified into the matter.
We are losing your voice in between, like some at some lines. I don't know why. Network issue or whatever. I don't know. Some parts, very rare, but it's happening.
Okay, let me change my headset. Just is it any better now?
Yeah, it was better. Just in middle, sometime it happens like unknowingly, like so. Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully this would be better. I'll reread maybe the entire section. Consciousness incarnates into the manifested dimension. This is to say, it becomes form. When it does so, it enters a dreamlike state. Intelligence dreams, but consciousness becomes unconscious of itself. It loses itself in the form, becomes identified with form. This could be this could be described as the descent of the divine into the matter. At that stage, the evolution of the universe, the entire outgoing movement takes place in a dreamlike state. Glimpses of awakening come only at a moment of dissolution of an individual form. This is to say death. That is to say death. And then begins the next incarnation, the next identification with the form, the next individual dream, part of the collective dream. When the lion tears apart the body of the zebra, the consciousness that incarnated into the zebra form detaches itself from the nature, from the dissolving form, and for a brief moment awakens into the essential immortal nature of consciousness, as consciousness, and then immediately falls back into sleep and reincarnates into another form. When the lion becomes old and cannot hunt anymore, it draws its last breath. There is again a briefest of the glimpses of an awakening, followed by another dream of form. On our planet, the human ego represents the final stage of universal identification of consciousness with the form. It was a necessary stage in the evolution process of consciousness. The human brain is is a highly differentiated form through which consciousness enters this dimension. It contains approximately 100 billion nerve cells called neurons, about the same number as there are stars in our galaxy, which could be seen as macrocosmic brain. The brain does not create consciousness, but consciousness created the brain, the most complex physical form on the earth, for its expression. When the brain gets damaged, it does not mean that you lose consciousness. Consciousness. It means consciousness can no longer use that form to enter the dimension. You cannot lose consciousness because it is, in essence, who you are. You can only lose something that you have, but you cannot lose something that you are. And stop here maybe for the next reader.
Yeah, yeah. Suman can take over from here. Suman, I think I don't know how far it is left, but if the chapter finishes, it's okay. Like you can take up to the end of the chapter.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
If anybody wants still, please write the name. Otherwise, I'll go on.
No, there are few more pages. Yeah. I think 2, 3 more pages and we'll be done maybe.
Okay, okay.
or three, four. I don't remember. I didn't count them exactly. But yeah, you can go with your flow.
Okay, okay. From
From
here,
here.
awakened doing. Awakened doing is the outer aspect of the next stage in the evolution of consciousness on our planet. The closer we get to the end of our present evolutionary stage, the more dysfunctional the ego becomes. In the same way that a caterpillar becomes dysfunctional just before it transforms into a butterfly. But the new consciousness is arising even as the old dissolves. We are in the midst of a momentous event in the evolution of human consciousness, but they won't be talking about it in the news tonight. On our planet, and perhaps simultaneously in many parts of our galaxy and beyond, consciousness is awakening from the dream of form. This does not mean all forms the world are going to dissolve, although quite a few almost certainly will. It means consciousness can now begin to create form without losing itself in it. It can remain conscious of itself even while it creates and experiences form. Why should it continue to create and experience form? For the enjoyment of it. How does consciousness do that? Through awakened humans who have learned the meaning of awakened doing. Awakened doing is the alignment of your outer purpose, what you do with your inner purpose, awakening and staying awake. Through awakened doing, you become one with the outgoing purpose of the universe. Consciousness flows through you into this world. It flows into your thoughts and inspires them. It flows into what you do and guides and empowers it. Not what you do, but how you do. What you do determines whether you are fulfilling your destiny, and how you do what you do is determined by your state of consciousness. A reversal of your priorities comes about when the main purpose for doing what you do becomes the doing itself, or rather, the current of consciousness that flows into what you do. That current of consciousness is what determines quality. Another way of putting it, in any situation, in whatever you do, your state of consciousness is the primary factor. The situation and what you do is secondary. Future success is dependent upon and inseparable from the consciousness out of which the actions emanate. That can be either the reactive force of the ego or alert attention of awakened consciousness. All truly successful action comes out of that field of alert attention rather than from ego and conditioned unconscious thinking. The three modalities of awakened doing. There are three ways in which consciousness can flow into what you do and thus through you into this world. Three modalities in which you can align your life with the creative power of the universe. Modality means the underlying energy frequency that flows into what you do and connects your actions with the awakened consciousness that is emerging into this world. What you do will be dysfunctional and of the ego unless it arises out of one of these three modalities. They may change during the course of a day, although one of them may be dominant during a certain stage in you. Each modality is appropriate to certain situations. The modalities of awakened doing are acceptance, enjoyment, and enthusiasm. Each one represents a certain vibrational frequency of consciousness. You need to be vigilant to make sure that one of them operates whenever you are engaged in doing anything at all, from the most simple task to the most complex. If you are not in the state of either acceptance, enjoyment, or enthusiasm, look closely and you will find that you are creating suffering for yourself and others. Acceptance. Whatever you cannot enjoy doing, you can at least accept that this is what you have to do. Acceptance means, for now, this is what this situation, this moment requires me to do. And so I do it willingly. We already spoke at length about the importance of inner acceptance of what happens, and acceptance of what you have to do is just another aspect of it. For example, you probably won't be able to enjoy changing the flat tire on your car at night in the middle of nowhere and in pouring rain, let alone be enthusiastic about it. But you can bring acceptance to it. Performing an action in the state of acceptance means you are at peace while you do it. That peace is a subtle energy vibration which then flows into what you do. On the surface, acceptance looks like a passive state, but in reality, it is active and creative because it brings something entirely new into this world. That peace, that subtle energy vibration is consciousness. And one of the ways in which it enters this world is through surrendered action, one aspect of which is acceptance. If you can neither enjoy or bring acceptance to what you do, stop. Otherwise, you are not taking responsibility for the only thing you can really take responsibility for, which also happens to be one thing that really matters, your state of consciousness. And if you are not taking responsibility for your state of consciousness, you are not taking responsibility for life. Enjoyment. The peace that comes with surrendered action turns to a sense of aliveness when you actually enjoy what you are doing. Enjoyment is the second modality of awakened doing. On the new earth, enjoyment will replace wanting as the motivating power behind people's actions. Wanting arises from the ego's delusion that you are a separate fragment that is disconnected from the power that lies behind all creation. Through enjoyment, you link into that universal creative power itself. When you make the present moment instead of past and future the focal point of your life, your ability to enjoy what you do and with it the quality of your life increases dramatically. Joy is the dynamic aspect of being. When the creative power of the universe becomes conscious of itself, it manifests as joy. You don't have to wait for something meaningful to come into your life so that you can finally enjoy what you do. There is more meaning in joy than you will ever need. The waiting to start living syndrome is one of the most common delusions of the unconscious state. Expansion and positive change on the outer level is much more likely to come into your life if you can enjoy what you are doing already, instead of waiting for some change so that you can start enjoying what you do. Don't ask your mind for permission to enjoy what you do. All you will get is plenty of reasons why you can't enjoy it. Not now. The mind will say, can't you see I am busy? There is no time. Maybe tomorrow you can start enjoying. That tomorrow will never come unless you begin enjoying what you are doing now. When you say, I enjoy doing this or that, it's really a misperception. It makes it appear that the joy comes from what you do, but that is not the case. Joy does not come from what you do. It flows into what you do and thus into this world from deep within you. The misperception that joy comes from what you do is normal, and it is also dangerous because it creates the belief that joy is something that can be derived from something else, such as an activity or thing. You then look to the world to bring you joy, happiness, but it cannot do that. This is why many people live in constant frustration. The world is not giving them what they think they need. Then, what is the relationship between something that you do and the state of joy? You will enjoy any activity in which you are fully present. Any activity that is not just a means to an end. It is not the action you perform that you really enjoy, but the deep sense of aliveness that flows into it. That aliveness is one with who you are. This means that when you enjoy doing something, you are really experiencing the joy of being in its dynamic aspect. That is why anything you enjoy doing, scroll down please, yes, anything you enjoy doing connects you with the power behind all creation. Here is a spiritual practice that will bring empowerment and creative expansion into your life. Make a list of a number of everyday routine activities that you perform frequently. Include activities that you may consider uninteresting, boring, tedious, irritating, or stressful. But don't include anything that you hate or detest doing. That is a case either for acceptance or for stopping what you do. The list may include traveling to and from work, buying groceries, doing your laundry, or anything that you find tedious or stressful in your daily work. Then, whenever you are engaged in those activities, let them be a vehicle for alertness. Be absolutely present in what you do and sense the alert, alive stillness within you in the background of the activity. You will soon find that what you do in such a state of heightened awareness, instead of being stressful, tedious, or irritating, is actually becoming enjoyable. To be more precise, what you are enjoying is not really the outward action, but the inner dimension of consciousness that flows into the action. This is finding the joy of being in what you are doing. If you feel your life lacks significance or is too stressful or tedious, it is because you have not brought that dimension into your life yet. Being conscious in what you do has not yet become your main aim. The new earth arises as more and more people discover that their main purpose in life is to bring the light of consciousness into this world and so use whatever they do as a vehicle for consciousness. The joy of being is the joy of being conscious. Awakened consciousness then takes over from ego and begins to run your life. You may then find that an activity that you have been engaged in for a long time naturally begins to expand into something much bigger when it becomes empowered by consciousness. Some of those people who, through creative action, enrich the lives of many others simply do what they enjoy doing most without wanting to achieve or become anything through that activity. They may be musicians, artists, writers, scientists, teachers, or builders, or they may bring into manifestation new social or business structures, enlightened business. Sometimes, for a few years, their sphere of influence remains small, and then it can happen that suddenly or gradually a wave of creative empowerment flows into what they do, and their activity expands beyond anything they could have imagined and touches countless others. In addition to enjoyment, and intensity is now added to what they do, and with it comes a creativity that goes beyond anything an ordinary human could accomplish. But don't let it go your head, because up there is where a remnant of ego may be hiding. You are still an ordinary human. What is extraordinary is what comes through you into this world, but that essence you share with all beings. The 14th century Persian poet and Sufi master Hafiz expresses this truth beautifully. I am a hole in a flute that the Christ's breath moves through. Listen to this music. Enthusiasm. Then there is another way of creative manifestation that may come to those who remain true to their inner purpose of awakening. Suddenly, one day they know what their outer purpose is. They have a great vision, a goal, and from then on, they work toward implementing that goal. Their goal or vision is usually connected in some way to something that on a smaller scale they are doing and enjoy doing already. This is where the third modality of awakened doing arises, that is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm means there is deep enjoyment in what you do, plus the added element of a goal or a vision that you work toward. When you add a goal to the enjoyment of what you do,
Sorry. Sorry, I shuffled by
okay,
mistake.
no problem.
I don't know. I think we should. Acha, it's here, na? Enthusiasm. It's a long topic. Shall we just read it tomorrow? I thought it's short because it's two more pages and then we'll two, three more pages. Or shall we just finish it off? What do you guys suggest? Because we are over time. I'm asking because of that. Or we can just
Yes,
finish the reading and keep the discussion for tomorrow. However, it's okay.
We can read it tomorrow. I think it would be good
Because
because we have a
we are going. So,
sufficient
yeah,
time
I
to
know.
discuss.
Yeah. I feel so. We can read from enthusiasm tomorrow. Is that okay?
yeah, that's fine.
And we'll also get more time for discussion. So today, if anything, anyone wants to quickly share, we can do that or we can close because we started early today. So let's not extend time today for everyone's convenience. So does anyone want to share something quick or you would like to share it tomorrow only together? Any highlights, any aha moments? You're most welcome. Nothing from what we read so far? Suman, you want to share something from ninth chapter or 10th
Actually,
chapter which you
yeah,
read?
many deep concepts were there. Tomorrow I will be sharing in a better way. So it was all about microcosmic and macrocosm, the vastness, how it encapsulated the vastness of totality, and many aha moments were there. Some child examples were also there. So I will have to focus and recollect, and tomorrow I will be sharing.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Tomorrow we'll have a longer discussion and a deeper discussion on the whole book, in fact, because it's just two more pages to go and we'll finish the book. So we'll finish it off tomorrow and then tomorrow we'll keep it more dedicated to discussion. We'll start sharp at 7 o'clock. So you all please be there on time. So make the most of our time together and we finish off in 1 hour. So
Yes,
we'll do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing that I related to, that is, we in Hindi we call Atma Paramatma. That is how consciousness takes its form, how unconscious and consciousness concept was very beautifully told, and it just was resonating to me. Like we call about what is Atma, and what is this physical nature, that our body, how it takes form, and
Yeah, very true, very true. I loved even that line that you read na just now about how Christ, I am a hole in the
the
flute of
flute. Yes,
Christ. It just reminded me of Krishna. Like I'm
yes,
like
yes.
how they are related, and they say that Christ, like I'm a son of God, is what normally is considered as Jesus says, right? Like Jesus
Hmm.
talks and Christ says that I'm a son of God, and it's also mentioned that. Only one in all of the scriptures and everything. It's only in Krishna Bhagavad Gita says that I am God. So I don't know. They say this like he's the only one who has mentioned that. I don't know
Yes,
what
very
all
true.
it means
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
but
it's
it just
I also
reminded me
heard the
how they have
same.
connected flute with Christ because flute
Hmm.
normally brings Krishna in front of your eyes, right? So
Yes.
that's how I connected with it, and also so many things. I love that example of sunset and sunrise and that analogy with our life and how it is relative and absolute and so many things and I could relate with that actually how our life starts contracting, right? Like we always talk about this, like as we grow in our 30s and 40s and we start growing older, we actually start losing on people from our life, all the close people, we start losing one by one, and then life takes start taking a different turn altogether. Until
And
that time,
old age
it's
was
very
also
different.
beautified, that how we take old age as seniors, elderly, but how it was very gracefully it was told.
Yeah, very beautifully. I that's what I said, na, the profundity is very, and Viren, I just connected this part as we were reading the last part. You see, this chapter is again bringing us to the present moment, and also I think that's a perfect spot even to start the power of now, because he explains a lot about how you can be the being and doing together when you're in the present moment, and the power of now talks all about that in depth. So I think we are on a best note. So let's get started with the power of now that we are in the flow. We'll do it a little differently, but let's read it together. If everyone is okay and interested in it, we can do that. We
Yes,
can
yes.
create a separate group and we can get our books and we can just start and read it at our own pace. Let's try that also, no? Like so we don't have to commit for every book. We don't have to commit a particular time and we can just do it at our pace, and that book particularly should be done that way. So let's do it that way. Let's give it a try.
I'm okay.
Cool, cool. Yeah. Okay, then let's close for today. Thank you everyone, and thank you for wonderful sharing and discussion. And we'll see you all tomorrow with some elaborated insights and discussion. Be there and let's make it like a deep discussion and a wonderful insightful sharing session tomorrow. And we will close on the book tomorrow then. So thank you everyone. See you all tomorrow. Bye bye. See you all at sharp 7. So be there so we can make the most of our time together. And if possible, do take some notes and come so that you are able to share more properly. All of us, like, yeah. Thank you. Bye
Yeah.
bye. See you all.
Okay, thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.